Disney's been having a lot of trouble with their Star Wars properties in recent years, and it kind of came to a head pretty recently with the failure that was The Acolyte, because they spent so much money to produce that show, and frankly, no one actually watched it. In fact, I think it was kind of crazy just the fact that they even announced that they're canceling the season just right after the season concluded, because usually Disney doesn't like to say that they messed up or anything like that. And by canceling it right after the series came out, it just kind of implies that they know it was a dud. Usually they would just try to quietly sweep it under the rug and maybe cancel it behind the scenes and not make a big announcement about it. But that's what happened, because there really was no denying that the show was a huge failure. And it's also starting to come into question what they're going to do with future Star Wars properties for the Disney Plus platform. We have this article from Screen Rant, the headline, Disney reportedly reducing number of Star Wars TV shows to one a year. And we kind of heard a lot of the same stuff coming out about Marvel, where they've been producing a lot of stuff for Marvel recently, and that really wasn't working for them. So they wanted to cut back on that in order to try to focus on the few things that they are actually producing for it. According to some reports, Disney may be reducing Star Wars TV show output moving forward, which could have a major implication for Star Wars movies and TV shows. Although the franchise has consistently faced scrutiny since Disney purchased Star Wars, many of Star Wars' best TV shows have been made under Disney's direction. That's pretty much all the Star Wars TV shows were made under Disney. There've only really been a couple prior to that. In fact, Star Wars timeline has expanded considerably in the years following Disney's acquisition. Nevertheless, Disney Star Wars has had its fair share of controversies and backlash, as the Acolyte's cancellation revealed, and now it seems Star Wars may be facing a change. And this is basically just saying, like, with all the expansions and other things like that of the Star Wars universe, we're just trying to say there's been more content from there. And it's like, well, yes, there's been a lot more content since Disney took it over, but we all know more doesn't necessarily mean better. And I think what they're trying to say with this, at least if these rumors are correct, they're wanting to go back to quality over quantity. Per the Direct insider Daniel Reichman shared that Disney may be reducing its Star Wars TV show output to just one new live-action show each year. According to Direct, Reichman stated, I'm hearing that several new series are in development, but it seems they plan to release only one live-action series each year starting in 2025. The article does go on to say that these rumors haven't necessarily been confirmed by anyone at Disney, so you can take them with a pinch of salt. But it does kind of seem to mesh up with what we've seen with other studios like Marvel, for instance. And it also mentions here that this is just pertaining to the live action series. It has nothing to do with the animated ones. And a lot of people are kind of wondering, like, well, why are they doing this just now? Because if they're going to be cutting back on the content, when they did it for Marvel, they were saying that they want to focus on producing better quality, and they can't do that when they're spread so thin. So they're going to try to cut back on the number of stuff that they're producing each year in order to focus on that. And that could apply to this one as well. But it really does seem like they're just doing it as a cost saving measure, especially when you consider the fact that they're really not producing a whole lot of live action shows to begin with. Just out of curiosity, I went on the Wikipedia page, a list of all the Disney or all the Star Wars properties, and you can see the live action series that they've actually released so far. And it's really not that much, all things considered. 2024, you have two shows that are being released. You had The Acolyte, and then now you're going to have Skeleton Crew come out. 2023, Ahsoka was released, as well as season 3 of The Mandalorian. Obi-Wan and Andor were the only things released in 22. Andor season 2 is going to be released next year, so presumably that's going to be the only thing that they release Star Wars related on Disney Plus next year. In 21, the only thing that was released was Book of Boba Fett. So by saying they're reducing it to just one thing a year, at most they're basically just cutting it in half, as in, like, well, they used to release 2 shows a year, now they're just releasing one. So it's not like it's they were spread so thin creatively, so you can chalk it up to, like, oh, it's oversaturation, or our executives have so much on their plate they can't handle 2 shows, now they can just handle 1 show. That's why I don't really buy that excuse. I think it mostly is a cost saving measure, and that's kind of what it talks about with this article. In fact, the same article by the Direct referenced Walt Disney CEO Bob Iger highlighting the need for Disney to both spend less and produce less. Disney's live action TV shows, Star Wars included, can be in the hundreds of millions of dollars range for just one season. Surely limiting such productions would therefore be a major consideration when looking to bring down costs. I think it's kind of funny that they're just treating the cost of these shows as an inherent loss as opposed to an investment, because that's what it should be treated as. Yes, you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to produce a show, but you should be expected to make as much money back. But we've come to learn that that's not really been the case either. We saw this article came out a few days ago, and I did a video on it if you haven't seen it. But basically, on a quick rundown, Disney had some documents hacked from them, and it was released showing revenue that they're actually generating for the Disney Plus platform. And it just kind of indicates that they're making very little money per subscriber. So the only thing that they actually have to do in order to reach profitability is either to hike the prices, which is something that they're already doing, and also to try to reduce the amount of expenses for it, which could mean reducing the amount of stuff that they're putting out there. But this is ultimately a short-sighted solution, because what they really need to do is try to entice new subscribers. And with what they're doing with shows like The Acolyte, it's just not that, because they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to produce that show. And that was something, if you look at the petition for people who want to bring it back, is only been able to generate around less than 72,000 signatures in the 3 weeks or so since this petition was posted. Now, just think about that for a second here, because this is something, it was one of the most expensive Disney Plus Star Wars shows to date. And in 3 weeks, they can only amass less than 72,000 people who are willing to take 1 minute to sign this petition. That just goes to show why Disney Star Wars model just isn't working for them, because they're not catering to the actual paying customer. They're trying to pander to a fringe minority of the audience, and it just hasn't been working out for them. So I would say reducing the amount of content isn't enough for them. What they need to do is to try to actually bring back the old Star Wars fan base, the people who actually showed up and made their films billion-dollar hits. But if they're going to just be pandering to these people, it's not going to work. But obviously these people are not happy about the fact that they learned that their ideology is completely rejected by the public. So they try to resort to attacking and canceling YouTubers. That was going around this last week, where they were trying to mass flag and harass YouTube into canceling some of these creators. They named out 3 specifically: Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, RK Outpost. And just out of curiosity, what's their support on this? Because like I already showed you, the Acolyte has 72,000 people who liked it within, or who are supporting it within a 3-week time frame. Nerdrotic, on the other hand, looking at a Social Blade score right here, 1.5 million views in a week. Now, that's the average, and these aren't necessarily unique, so it could be one person watching multiple of his videos. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt, but still, there's a lot more viewership on Nerdrotic than there is for the Acolyte. Let's go to Geeks and Gamers here. 435,000 within a week time frame. Okay. RK Outpost, how's that doing? 1.3 million views. So you get the idea. There's a lot more people in the audience who watch these people who reject the Acolyte and reject a lot of the Disney Star Wars stuff than there are people who actually watch the Disney Star Wars stuff. So if this is going to be any indicator, it should be that Disney needs to stop pandering to these people. They need to start producing content that kind of entices people to come to the Disney Plus platform, and making more of this, even if they're reducing the output to try to reduce costs. It's not going to help them if they're just going to be making more shows like The Acolyte. They need to try to do something that brings back the old Star Wars fan base. And until then, what they're doing right now just really wouldn't work. And that's why I would say Disney would be a dead brand, or Disney Star Wars is a dead brand, unless they try to reach out to that old fan base, the real Star Wars fan base. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you think there's any saving Disney Star Wars, or do you think it's just done at this point? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it helps out with the channel. Thank you.